everybody for coming out. My name is Chad Charland. I am a non-party affiliated candidate for State House in District 15. The district is all of Nassau County and then northern Duval County north of 295. So think of the airport, River City Market, all of those homes over there, and then the extreme northwestern part of Duval County, like by Baldwin. So this is State House, go to Tallahassee. That's what we're talking about here. And I have never run for office before, but felt compelled to do this when I learned that the incumbent was running unopposed. Now, I know Janet through my mom, Jane, and they both do sea turtle watch for the nests and horseshoe crabs and that sort of thing. So they've become friends, and Janet was nice enough to invite me and put this together and have all of you come out to meet me. So considering how they met, you can imagine that conservation and the environment have always been primary issues for me since I can remember. I grew up in Wisconsin in a kind of ruralish sort of area, farms and forests, and I remember my mom would take my brother and I, and we'd go give apples to horses, and we'd go go to the zoo and go drive around and look for deer at night, and there were turkeys and hawks and all of this kind of stuff. So I was always very connected to nature early on, and developed this belief that everything had a spirit. The trees have a spirit. Our four-legged relatives, as the native people say, have a spirit, and that has really guided me throughout my entire life. And running for office, you think back through all of your life and how you got here and what matters to you and what your values are, and thinking about conservation, I've thought a lot about a story. And I was riding in the car coming back from school one day, and maybe 10 years old, and it was a long road. It's been in the 80s, so there wasn't traffic and houses everywhere, and two squirrels, one chasing the other, darted out in front of the car. And one of those things where it's too late, you can't do anything. What are you going to do? And I looked in the rearview mirror and said, "Oh, what happened?" And one of the squirrels made it, and one of the squirrels didn't. But I kept watching, and this is all happening in an instant. You know how that works. The squirrel that made it, as soon as it got to the other side, instinctively ran back to the middle to the squirrel that didn't make it. Oh. And I wrote my thoughts down earlier today, and I'm glad I did, because I did not make it through this story without getting choked up. That's 40 years ago, and I still remember it, because the squirrel that made it, again, immediately came back to the middle to be like, "Okay, come on, let's go, let's keep going." What happened? They were chasing each other, they were playing, they were friends, or boyfriend, girlfriend, something like that. And I saw that in the rearview mirror. And in that instant, I knew, or it became obvious to me, that animals are individuals. They have personalities. They laugh and they play and they feel. And it created in me this incredible sense of empathy. And again, this is 40 years ago, and I was in my backyard, voice to texting this thing, tearing up, because I have this incredible well of empathy. And then we have pets. We had cats, and if you feel that, your pets are distinct and individuals and have personalities. And when I saw that squirrel die and the other one come back for it, looking back upon it, I realized that, unconsciously at that time, I dedicated the rest of my life to advocating on behalf of animals and trying to protect animals and wild spaces. And here in Florida and Amelia Island, of course, we have such an incredible natural resource around us with the live oak trees and the dunes and the sea turtles and the birds and on and on and on it goes. So someone was asking me earlier, well, when did you get involved in politics and that kind of thing? Well, from a conservation and environmental standpoint, for decades. Here in Fernandina Beach, I am the conservation chair for the local chapter of the Florida Native Plant Society. I worked with the Florida Native Plant Society to advocate against the titanium mine that was proposed for the doorstep of the Okefenokee Swamp. I worked and continue to work at the forefront of keeping the ethanol plant out of Fernandina. I'm leading the effort to enact the data center moratorium for Nassau County. I worked with the North Florida Land Trust to protect Little Nana Dune at American Beach from development. So, my, bona fide, so to speak, as a candidate are in conservation and the environment. The rest of it is kind of opinions and feelings. And conservation is my number one interest. It's what I know most about from a state legislative standpoint. Again, I tell people, I know what I know. I can't possibly know everything that goes on up there when it comes to every single issue. But on the environmental stuff, it would be hard to throw a pitch past me. And that sense of empathy, I have, continued to cultivate and foster. And I feel if I have a superpower, it is empathy. And that empathy, of course, extends to people. Now, it's hard to imagine, but Elon Musk and the tech bros and the villains in our federal and state government want you to believe that empathy is a weakness, that caring for people is a weakness, that understanding what other people go through is a weakness. That's sick. Anyone who thinks empathy is a weakness is a deranged, diseased person. Thinking that caring is a weakness. Thinking that understanding is weakness. And these people will tell you that empathy is a weakness. Absolutely not. I am running for office, one of many reasons, but foremost among them is the level of suffering that is taking place around this state. So much cruelty being perpetrated by our politicians. Cruelty just for the spectacle of it, the joy of it. Masochism, cruelty as policy. How else would you explain a state legislature, and we were talking about preemptions, here's another preemption. There were municipalities that mandated shade breaks for outdoor workers during the summer. Well, that makes sense, right? It's 2:30 in the afternoon and you're working a highway crew or you're roofing. These municipalities said, you know what, let's take an hour, let these guys get in the shade, get some water. Mandatory. The employer has to not only allow it, but build it into the workday. State legislature came along and said, no, you cannot do that. What sense does that possibly make, aside from wanting to be cruel? Aside from wanting to make it hard for people. Cruelty for the sake of it. Cruelty because they can just get away with it and they know it doesn't affect the people who vote for them. And that's why I'm running for office, in part, to stand up for the outdoor worker who just wants a shade break, who wants some water, for the Haitian immigrant, for the union school teacher, for the trans kid, for the drag queen, for the black citizen who has been disenfranchised. Committing to use my privilege, the privilege of this skin color and my gender, to fight for people who this state wants to keep as a permanent underclass. This state declined federal money earmarked for school lunches. The federal government said, Florida, here's however many hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars. Now this has to be spent on school lunches. Ron DeSantis said, no thanks. We're happy having our school kids be hungry. Cruelty as policy. There's no other reason for doing that. Florida has kicked something like 40,000 children off of their health insurance assistance. Didn't have to. They've got the money. Just don't want to provide it. Healthcare for kids who are poor. Cruelty. ICE was in Fernandina Beach last week, breaking up families, taking people. Took a mother of 5 out of her home. I got there just in time to see 2 little not yet school-aged children being led out of the home by a family friend. Utter look of bewilderment on their face. Could have no possible idea what was going on. And God knows when they'll see their mother again. She was, of course, no criminal, no rapist, no worst of the worst. Like the dictator and his sycophants want you to believe is the background of immigrants. Truth is, immigrants, even undocumented immigrants, commit crimes at a rate far less than natural-born citizens. ICE was here at the Omni on Saturday. Do you know that?
No.
Taking people, breaking up families. And the ruling party in this state thinks that's a big joke. Thinks it's an opportunity for merch. We've got concentration camps in this state where people are suffering, where people are being deprived of food, where people are being deprived of basic human sanitary conditions, hygienic supplies, medicine. Forget about phone calls to family members or access to attorneys as guaranteed in the Constitution. Whether you are a legal citizen or not, the Constitution applies to every and anybody who has 2 feet on the ground in this country. You don't have to be a citizen or a legal resident for the Constitution to apply to you. Due process is not something you get on your birth certificate. It's something you get by breathing the air here. And the Republicans think this is all a big joke. The District 15 incumbent thinks this is a big joke. I don't think it's a joke. I think it is a humanitarian crisis and a black mark on this state that will never be erased. And I've been to Alligator Auschwitz, as close as anyone can get. I've been to the gate where they've got the military personnel and they turn everyone around. And you've heard of that one, but there's another one in Baker County that's like an hour and a half from here. And I've been there too. Because I wanted to be a witness. I want to be able to tell people, I saw it with my own 2 eyes. Don't you tell me 20 years from now that didn't happen, or that wasn't as bad as people say it is. And because of my empathy, I can imagine what it's like to suffer in that heat and that humidity in those cages and be hungry and be scared and get a bathroom break every couple of hours and have no idea who knows where you are or when your case is going to be heard how to contact your family, or what your rights are. So I'm running in part, and again, while you're running, what's important? There's a million things, right? And I'll get questions from everyone, and we can talk about what matters to you. But I'm running to fight cruelty in state government. A state government that has also made it easier for employers to hire kids. 13-year-olds can now work in this state. 13? You can work in this state before you go through puberty? Who does that benefit? The kid, the family? No, benefits the business, the company, the corporation, who can drive wages down. Cruelty. I'm running because empathy compels me to do something, to fight for these people, to show people with no power and no voice that someone does in fact care about you, that someone does think about you, that someone is willing to fight for you. And like I said, I've never run for office. I never wanted to run for office. But when I learned this spring that a book banning, voter disenfranchising, concentration camp supporting corporate incumbent Dean Black was running unopposed for this office, I felt compelled to give people a choice. And it is a stark choice. It is a choice between government by cruelty or government by empathy.